A home for wayward girls, a forbidden book, and a power that demands a price. Witchcraft for Wayward Girls is the latest novel to manifest from best-selling author Grady Hendrix. Here to unveil the dark magic woven into its pages is the master of horror himself. Grady, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me and for calling me a master of horror. That's nice.
I mean,
it's
you
flattering.
have coined yourself that. I mean, that you really have had such success. And I have to say,
Thanks.
I went on your website and I was reading your About section, and it acknowledged the success you've had, but it was as hilarious as it was chaotic. So before we talk about this book, tell me a little about yourself and what made you fall in love with horror.
Well, I'm from the Old Village in Mount Pleasant, and born and raised, and I was not a horror reader. I mean, I read Stephen King like everyone else, but the covers creeped me out too much. But as I got older and I started writing, I realized that I don't want to write about another planet. I don't want to write about a fantasy world. I wanted to write about people here and now, and that's what horror does, except the less boring version. You get to have werewolves.
That's very true, and also witchcraft. Right?
Exactly.
So this book, it takes place in a 1970s Florida.
Yeah.
And it is, so tell us about really what the book is, because there's real life horror, but there's some supernatural elements that you've tied in there as well.
Sure. So the book's set in 1970 in St. Augustine, Florida, like you said, and it's about a bunch of girls who are sent to a maternity home. They're teenagers, they're pregnant, they're obviously not married, and maternity homes are where parents sent their daughters, you know, to keep them from being shamed. They'd go off and spend the summer in their third trimester at some home, cooped up somewhere, have their baby, come home, and just say, oh, you know, I went to work on my French, or in New York, or I went to visit my aunt, and no one would ever know they had a baby that was put up for adoption. And so these girls show up at this home, you know, none of them know what's gonna happen next, no one will tell them what's gonna happen to their kid. And the only place they can find any information or power is this book about witchcraft. And, you know, complications ensue. Yeah. So, yeah.
And it's interesting because this was actually a sad reality for millions of women back in this baby scoop era, which you did a lot of research on to do this novel. But a lot of the books you have written, there's a strong female protagonist.
Right.
And I have to ask, what drew you to wanting to write about women?
It's sort of, well, the first thing that happened is when I was writing a book, I needed my main character to not be me.
Fair enough.
Otherwise, they're just an incredibly talented and handsome individual all the time.
Of course.
So the easiest way to do that was to make it a woman. And that way they felt more real to me, more three-dimensional. It wasn't just a version of me.
Yeah.
But I have 3 older sisters. I was mostly raised by my mom. I've been married since I was 20. So I've been around women all my life. So I've seen a lot of what they go through, and to me, I'm always like, well, there's a story there. Yeah. I wrote this book in particular because when I was in my 20s, one of our relatives, who was very close, came out and said that she had been sent to a maternity home when she was a teenager and had a son and given him up for adoption, and he had just gotten back in touch with her. And then shortly thereafter, another relative of mine who was very close also revealed this, and they had very similar stories, but the idea that these women had been shamed for this, hidden as if they committed a crime, and then told to never contact their child again or see them again or think about them again, really blew my mind. And I was trying to wrap my head around it. And there's a book by a woman named Ann Fessler called The Girls Who Went Away that is about this. It's kind of the only book written about this. No one likes to talk about the maternity homes. And I was like, there's a story here. There's something here. Yeah. It's really, you know, a house full of teenagers who've been told they've wrecked their lives and are the worst people on earth ever, who are all pregnant, who are all about to have a baby, who are all terrified, just cooped up in the middle of nowhere. I mean, to me, I'm like, that story writes itself.
Yeah, and I don't think we realize how many people will see parts of themselves in a book like this. And I have to acknowledge, this book came out, I think, a little over 2 weeks ago. It's already number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
What do you think sets this book apart from the other books that you've written to see this fast success? What do you think it is?
I don't know. And if I did, I would bottle it and do it again. But yeah, I think one thing, though, a lot of people have gotten in touch whose mothers were sent to maternity homes, whose birth mothers, and who were adopted. And I think this doesn't get talked about very often, and there are a lot of people out there who are looking for something about this, even if it's a weird horror novel about witches, just to get an idea of what this was like, because there were 190 of these homes. Over 2 million kids were adopted out of them between 45 and 73. it's a big part of our history and we really do ignore it.
Yeah, we do. Well, thank you to you. You are bringing not only attention to this, but you are also entertaining millions of people. Obviously, the book is already performing very well. And this is book number 7 for you.
Yes.
So congratulations again, Grady. You can get this book wherever books are sold. GradyHendrix.com is where you can go for more information about Grady and all the wonderful work he does. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, dude, thanks for having me.
We're back in 2 minutes.